What if I told you that your greatest gift is also your most dangerous weapon? That the very thing that makes you special is exactly what makes others want to destroy you. Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist who decoded the human mind, discovered something so disturbing about empaths that it shook the foundation of everything we thought we knew about human relationships. You know that feeling when someone gets close to you, opens up, tells you their deepest secrets, and then suddenly turns against you with inexplicable hatred. When they call you too much, too sensitive, or too intense. Jung found out why this happens, and the truth is more twisted than you could ever imagine. This isn't about toxic people or red flags. This goes deeper. Jung discovered that empaths unconsciously attract people who project their psychological shadows onto them. People who secretly resent empaths for possessing what they've lost forever. Your emotional authenticity becomes a mirror reflecting their inner depth, and they can't forgive you for showing them what they've killed within themselves. If you've ever felt like you're cursed to attract people who eventually turn on you, if you've been told you're too emotional by people who seem dead inside, then what Jung discovered about empathic psychology will finally give you the answers you've been searching for. Buckle up, this gets dark. The psychological trap that destroys him. Jung called it the luminous authenticity paradox, and it's probably ruining your life right now without you even knowing it. Here's how the trap works. Your empathic nature automatically attracts emotionally damaged people like a magnet. They're drawn to your emotional aliveness because their unconscious recognizes what they've lost. But here's the twisted part. They simultaneously resent you for having it. Picture this scenario that Jung documented over and over in his clinical practice. An empath meets someone who's emotionally shut down. The damaged person feels safe. For the first time in years around the empath's authentic energy, they open up, share their pain, experience genuine connection. The empath, naturally compassionate, creates a healing space where this person feels understood and accepted. But then something sinister happens. The emotionally damaged person starts feeling uncomfortable with their own vulnerability. Your authenticity reminds them of their own emotional death. Your natural responses make them feel weak by comparison. Instead of doing the hard work to reconnect with their own feelings, they choose the easier path. They attack you for having what they don't. Jung discovered that most people disconnect from authentic emotion early in life as a survival mechanism. Maybe their parents punished them for crying. Maybe society taught them that sensitivity equals weakness. Maybe trauma forced them to shut down to survive. Whatever the cause, they learned to operate from false personas that gain social acceptance, but cost them their emotional aliveness. When these people encounter a real someone who never learned to kill their feeling function, it triggers what Jung called authenticity rage. Your natural emotional expression becomes a painful reminder of what they sacrificed. You're walking evidence that they didn't have. To become emotionally numb to survive, and that realization is unbearable. The cruelest part, they often seek you out specifically because their unconscious knows what they need. They're attracted to your emotional freedom, your ability to feel deeply, your authentic responses. But instead of using your example to heal themselves, they try to drag you down to their level. They criticize your emotions, mock your sensitivity, and gradually convince you that your greatest gift is actually a flaw. Jung found that empaths who don't understand this dynamic often end up in a devastating cycle. They attract emotionally dead people who initially seem grateful for their empathy. The empath pours energy into helping them heal, but instead of healing, these people become resentful and eventually turn against the very person who tried to save them. This isn't just about romantic relationships. Jung documented this pattern in friendships, family dynamics, and professional environments. Wherever empaths go, they unconsciously trigger shadow projections from people who have betrayed their own emotional truth. The empath becomes a target for unconscious self-hatred that gets projected outward onto someone who represents what they could no longer access within themselves. Understanding this pattern is the first step toward breaking free from it. Once you realize that the resentment directed toward your authenticity isn't about you, it's about their inner wounds, everything changes. You stop trying to dim your light to make others comfortable and start protecting your gift from those who would destroy it. The 4 types of shadow projectors who target your light. Jung identified 4 distinct personality types who unconsciously hunt empaths like predators stalking prey. Recognizing these patterns could save your sanity and possibly your life. Each type has a different method of attacking your authenticity, but they all share one thing in common: they're projecting their own psychological wounds onto your strength. Type 1. The emotional critic. These are the feeling police who constantly tell you that your emotions are wrong, excessive, or inappropriate. Jung discovered that emotional critics have suppressed their own feelings so completely that witnessing authentic emotion triggers unconscious shame about their emotional deadness. They've internalized the toxic message that emotions equal weakness, and they project this belief onto empaths with religious fervor. You'll recognize them by their favorite phrases: "You're overreacting," "It's not that serious," "You need to toughen up," or "Stop being so dramatic." What they're really saying is, "Your aliveness reminds me of my death, and I can't stand it." They attack your emotional responses because your ability to feel deeply exposes their inability to feel anything real. Type 2. The authenticity attacker. These individuals have built their entire identity around false personas and social masks. Jung observed how people who live behind psychological costumes feel threatened by those who don't need costumes to survive. They criticize empaths for being too real or inappropriate, when empaths simply haven't learned to hide their authentic selves behind social facades. Authenticity attackers are masters of the phrase, "That's not how you're supposed to act." They police social interactions with military precision because authentic expression threatens their carefully constructed false identity. Your natural responses make them feel fake by comparison, so they try to force you into the same prison of inauthenticity where they're trapped. Type 3. The vulnerability violator. Jung noted that these are people who specifically target empaths' openness and trust. They've been hurt so badly that they've closed their hearts completely, and they unconsciously punish empaths for maintaining emotional availability. They take advantage of empathic openness, then blame empaths for being too trusting, rather than acknowledging their own betrayal of that trust. Vulnerability violators are particularly dangerous because they appear safe initially. They share just enough of their own pain to gain your trust, then use your compassionate response against you. They're experts at making empaths feel stupid for believing in basic human decency. Their message is clear: you deserve to be hurt, because you still believe in love. Type 4. The light dimmer. The most dangerous type Jung encountered were people who systematically work to diminish empaths' confidence in their own gifts. They've disconnected from their own inner light so completely that others' radiance becomes unbearable. Light dimmers use subtle psychological manipulation to convince empaths that their natural empathy is a problem, to be fixed rather than a gift to be honored. They're masters of concern trolling. "I'm worried about you. You care too much about everyone else. You need to focus on yourself more. Your empathy is going to get you hurt." What sounds like care is actually psychological warfare designed to make you doubt your own nature. They want to convince you that your gift is a curse, so you'll voluntarily dim your light. Jung's most chilling discovery was that these 4 types often work together in empaths' lives. You might have an emotional critic as a parent, an authenticity attacker as a boss, a vulnerability violator as a romantic partner, and light dimmers as friends. They create what Jung called a psychological ecosystem of suppression, where every direction you turn, someone is attacking your authenticity from a different angle. The key to freedom is recognizing these patterns before they destroy you. Once you understand that their attacks reveal their wounds rather than your flaws, you gain the power to protect yourself while maintaining your empathic gifts. The shadow projection epidemic. Why they attack what they've lost. Here's where Jung's discovery gets truly disturbing. The reason these people target empaths isn't random. It's surgical precision aimed at destroying what they can no longer access within themselves. Jung called this phenomenon inverse mirroring, where people attack in others what they've killed in themselves. Think about the psychological implications here. When someone with a dead heart encounters someone with a living heart, they have 2 choices. Use that example to resurrect their own emotional aliveness, or destroy the evidence that emotional aliveness is possible. Most people, Jung found, choose destruction because resurrection requires admitting they killed something precious within themselves. The shadow projection process works like this. First, they recognize unconsciously that you possess something they've lost. Your emotional authenticity triggers memories of their own buried sensitivity. Your ability to feel deeply reminds them of when they could feel deeply too. Your natural empathy reflects their own empathy that they murdered to survive childhood trauma or social conditioning. But instead of feeling grateful for this reminder or using it as inspiration to heal, they feel rage. Your existence proves they didn't have to become emotionally numb. You're living evidence that they had choices they refused to make. Your light exposes their self-imposed darkness, and they can't forgive you for showing them what they could have been. Jung discovered that the plus intensity of their attack correlates directly with the depth of their own wound. The person who attacks your sensitivity most viciously is often the one who was most sensitive before life taught them that sensitivity leads to pain. The person who mocks your empathy most cruelly probably had the deepest empathy before they learned to kill it for social acceptance. This creates what Jung called projection amplification. They don't just dislike your empathy, they develop an obsessive need to destroy it. They become missionaries for emotional numbness, trying to convert you to their religion of feeling nothing. They can't rest until you become as dead inside as they are, because your aliveness is constant torture for their deadness. The most insidious part is how they disguise their attacks as help. I'm just trying to protect you from getting hurt. The world will eat you alive if you don't toughen up. You need to develop thicker skin. They frame emotional murder as emotional education, convincing empaths that killing their own feelings is somehow growth or maturity. Jung found that empaths who don't understand this dynamic often internalize these attacks. They start believing that their empathy really is a flaw. They begin attacking their own emotional nature with the same violence others have directed toward them. They become their own emotional assassins, completing the destruction that others started. But here's what Jung realized that changed everything. Their resentment of your authenticity is actually grief in disguise. They're mourning their own lost emotional truth. When they attack your sensitivity, they're crying out about their own buried sensitivity. When they mock your empathy, they're grieving their own murdered empathy. Understanding this doesn't excuse their behavior, but it explains it. They're not evil, they're wounded. They're not your enemies, they're casualties of a world that teaches people to kill their hearts to survive. But understanding this also means you can stop taking their attacks personally and start seeing them as information about their psychological state, rather than accurate feedback about your nature. The empath's evolution from victim to psychological warrior. Jung discovered that empaths who survived the shadow projection attacks don't just heal, they transformed into something the world desperately needs. He called them psychological warriors, individuals who maintain their empathic gifts while developing the strength to protect themselves from those who would destroy their authenticity. The evolution happens in 4 distinct stages that Jung mapped through years of clinical observation. Stage 1. Recognition without self-attack. The first breakthrough occurs when empaths stop believing that others' inability to tolerate their light means they should dim it. Jung called this projection immunity, the ability to recognize resentment directed toward authenticity as information about the attacker's wounds rather than evidence of the empath's flaws. This stage is crucial because most empaths initially internalize the attacks. They start believing they really are too much or too sensitive. They begin policing their own emotions, suppressing natural responses, and trying to become more like the emotionally numb people around them. Jung found that empaths who get stuck in this stage often develop depression, anxiety, and a profound sense of being fundamentally flawed. The breakthrough comes when they realize, the problem isn't that I feel too much. The problem is that others feel too little. This shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of trying to become more numb, they start questioning why emotional numbness is considered normal. Stage 2. Boundary development without heart. Closure. The second evolution involves learning to protect empathic gifts without becoming emotionally unavailable. Jung called this selective permeability, remaining open to love while becoming immune to psychological attacks disguised as relationships. This is tricky territory because many empaths swing too far in the protective direction. They built walls so high that nothing can get through, not attacks, but also not genuine connection. Jung found that healthy boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They keep out projection while allowing inauthenticity. Empaths in this stage learn to distinguish between someone sharing genuine emotion and someone dumping their unprocessed trauma. They recognize the difference between someone asking for empathic understanding and someone demanding that the empath manage their emotions for them. Stage 3. Tribe creation without compromise. The third transformation happens when empaths Stop trying to gain acceptance from those who resent authenticity and focus on building relationships with those who celebrate it. Jung called this vibrational matching, attracting people who resonate with emotional aliveness rather than those who fear it. This stage requires releasing the fantasy that everyone can appreciate empathic gifts. Jung found that many waste years trying to prove their worth to people who are psychologically incapable of recognizing it. It's like trying to show a blind person a sunset, not because they're bad people, but because they lack the necessary equipment to perceive what you're offering. Evolved empaths learn to identify light appreciators, people who, regardless of their own empathic abilities, consciously choose to support authentic emotional expression in others. These might be fellow empaths, emotionally evolved known empaths, or simply people who understand that empathic individuals serve an important function in collective emotional healing. Stage 4. Service from overflow, not depletion. The final evolution involves what Jung called conscious service, using empathic gifts to help others while maintaining strong boundaries against exploitation. Empaths at this stage serve from abundance rather than emptiness. They give their gifts to those who can receive them without demanding acceptance from those who cannot. Jung observed that empaths who reach this stage become incredibly powerful forces for healing in the world. They've maintained their emotional authenticity while developing the strength to protect it. They can feel deeply without being destroyed by others' emotions. They can offer empathy without absorbing others' pain. These evolved empaths serve a crucial evolutionary function. They model what healthy emotional expression looks like while maintaining their ability to help others reconnect with their own buried authenticity. Jung believed they were essential for humanity's advancement toward more genuine emotional connection. The key insight Jung discovered is that empaths don't need to choose between maintaining their gifts and protecting themselves. They can do both, but it requires understanding that their empathy isn't the problem, others' resentment of it is. Once they stop trying to fix their gift and start protecting it, they become exactly what Jung believed empathic individuals were meant to be: bridges between humanity's emotional past and its emotional future. Your mission as an empath in an emotionally dead world. Here's Jung's most revolutionary discovery. Empaths aren't victims of a cruel psychological dynamic. They're evolutionary agents sent to heal humanity's emotional wounds. Your sensitivity isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature designed to upgrade the entire human operating system. Jung realized that what appears as personal suffering in empathic individuals actually serves a collective healing function. You're not just feeling your own emotions, you're sensing and processing buried feelings that entire cultures need to acknowledge. Your empathic responses often reflect what society needs to feel, but has learned to suppress. Think about it this way. In a world where people are taught to disconnect from authentic emotion, where sensitivity is mocked and empathy is seen as weakness, someone has to keep the flame of feeling alive. Someone has to remember what healthy emotional expression looks like. Someone has to model emotional authenticity for those who have forgotten how to access their own hearts. That someone is you. The empath's true purpose. Jung discovered that empaths serve three critical functions in human evolution. First, you're emotional archaeologists, excavating buried feelings that others have suppressed. When you respond empathically to someone's pain, you're not just offering comfort, you're showing them that their emotions are valid and deserve attention. You're proving that feeling deeply is possible and necessary. Second, you're authenticity ambassadors, demonstrating that vulnerability can coexist with strength. In a world that equates emotional openness with weakness, your existence challenges that fundamental lie. You prove that the most sensitive people are often the strongest, because it takes incredible courage to keep your heart open in a world that punishes emotional honesty. Third, your evolutionary bridges, connecting humanity's emotionally suppressed present with its emotionally liberated future. Jung believed that the collective human psyche was evolving toward greater emotional intelligence and authentic connection. Empaths are early adapters of this evolution, showing others what's possible when we stop killing our feelings to fit social expectations. The conscious service model. Jung developed what he called the conscious service model for empaths who understand their evolutionary role. Instead of unconsciously absorbing everyone's pain and burning out, you learn to serve strategically, offering your gifts to those who can receive them, while protecting yourself from those who would exploit or resent them. This means recognizing that not everyone is ready for your medicine. Some people need to stay in emotional numbness longer before they're ready to feel again. Trying to force empathic healing on someone who resents it serves neither of you. Your job isn't to save everyone, it's to be available for those who genuinely seek emotional healing. Conscious service also means understanding that your empathy is precious and finite. You don't owe everyone unlimited access to your emotional energy. Learning to say no to emotional vampires isn't selfish, it's strategic. It preserves your gifts for people who will actually benefit from them. The light bearer's responsibility. Jung believed that empaths have a sacred responsibility to protect their authenticity, not just for themselves, but for collective healing. Every time you dim your light to make others comfortable, humanity loses a little more emotional wisdom. Every time you suppress your natural responses to avoid criticism, the world becomes a little more emotionally impoverished. But every time you maintain your authenticity despite attacks, you're keeping alive the possibility that others can reclaim their own buried feelings. Every time you respond with genuine empathy, despite being called too sensitive, you're proving that emotional authenticity is stronger than emotional suppression. Your light isn't just yours, it belongs to everyone who needs evidence that feeling deeply is still possible in this world. The children who are learning to shut down their emotions need to see that some adults maintained theirs. The wounded adults who buried their sensitivity need to see that resurrection is possible. The future generations need you to keep emotional wisdom alive until they're ready to receive it. The ultimate integration at the highest level of development. Jung observed that empaths learn to hold their gifts with both strength and compassion. They maintain their authenticity while understanding that others' resentment comes from pain rather than malice. They shine their light fully while having empathy for those who cannot yet tolerate that brightness. This is what Jung called luminous compassion, the ability to remain empathically open while being psychologically protected. You understand that people attack your light because they're living in darkness, not because your light is too bright. You maintain your emotional aliveness while having compassion for those who learned to emotionally die. The ultimate integration means recognizing that you came here not to fit into an emotionally suppressed world, but to help transform it into an emotionally liberated one. Your sensitivity isn't a survival challenge, it's a gift to humanity. Your empathy isn't a personal curse, it's medicine for collective healing. Jung's final message to empaths was clear. Stop trying to dim your light for those who prefer darkness. Stop suppressing your gifts to gain acceptance from those who resent them. The world needs your authenticity, your sensitivity, your emotional aliveness. You were born to be an empath, not as punishment, but as purpose. Your mission isn't to become less empathic, it's to become a more protected, conscious, and strategic empath, one who serves from overflow rather than depletion, one who offers healing to those ready to receive it while maintaining boundaries against those who would destroy it. You are not too much for this world. This world simply hasn't caught up to your level of emotional evolution yet. Keep burning bright. Humanity's emotional future depends on it.